Again, I follow Hannibal and Scipio throughout the book from ancient history, but I'm always keen to translate the lessons to other life contexts, other times, other peoples, so that we have it easier to see ourselves in it. Because I want the reader to say, okay, he's inviting me, Andreas is inviting me to translate this into whatever I'm doing right now. And so here the issue is political death. And this is generally for successful people. This is late in the book, but if you become successful, there is a danger that a lot of successful people are too naive to notice, which is the pettiness, just the anger. And, I start with a quote from Jean-Paul Sartre, hell is other people. So if you just think like people watching you, it might be office politics in the cubicles. They're talking about you, whatever. Or it might be if you're in high school. I mean, it's very bad politics in high school, So the viciousness, the crab mentality, that's one word for it, of other people wanting to pull you down whenever you succeed is a real threat that usually people only think about once they're successful, right? And so to illustrate this, I took one of the lives I took was Liu Shaoqi. Let me tell you who he was. He's a wonderful character during the Communist Revolution in China. He was one of the old guard during the Long March with Mao, with Deng Xiaoping, with these others. He was one of them, and he was president of China after their victory in the 40s. And so for the 40s and 50s, he was the president of China. Mao Zedong was the chairman of the party. Okay, so which is more important, but Liu Shaoqi was right up there with him, and he wrote a book about how to be a communist, and that was until Mao's Little Red Book, the book. So he literally wrote the book, and he was one of the most respected leaders that China had. And the problem was that he and his wife were so elegant and so popular and so successful. You see where this is going? That Mao was paranoid, and Mao's wife, Jiang Qing, was especially not just paranoid, but envious. And so it's that in that very seething, low, dangerous way that people can be, it's part of human nature. Mao and his wife, for different reasons, and their insecurities, started hating them for their success. Liu Shaoqi and his wife, Guangmei. And then the culture, and out of this, Mao essentially unleashed the Cultural Revolution to destroy his enemies. And he gave his wife implicitly these powers to get even with whoever she envied, whoever she hated. And she was this vindictive, small, vulgar personality, and they just went for it. And the Cultural Revolution took down all these victims. But Liu Shaoqi and his wife were one, and their kids. And Liu Shaoqi was eventually first ostracized and ignored, and then attacked physically, and then tortured, and eventually left to lie in a prison in his own vomit to die in Inner Mongolia or somewhere. And Wang Guangmei, his wife, went to prison. Several of his children from his first and second marriages, some died and in prison, some were railroaded, I think one of them, some survived. But it took this decade-long convulsion of the Cultural Revolution where Mao and his wife were basically just getting even, just because they hated people. And it's just such a harrowing story that I think the lesson there is, okay, so you have talent, you're successful, you're, like Liu Shaoqi. Well, still, be careful. These people are out there. So you have to somehow protect yourself, and that's sort of a more of an older person's lesson, right? It's not because the later chapters are more for older reader, or like hopefully the younger readers still reading. But
we grow with Hannibal.
This is what you find out when you're not 20 anymore. This is what you find out when you're a little bit older.
Right. So I don't know how sensitive the topic of Cultural Revolution is still in China. And forgive me for asking this, but do you worry about book sales in China with the inclusion of this story? Or how do you handle the part in the Chinese translation, or like worry about self-censorship in any way? No.
No, I don't worry about book sales at all, first of all. It's just the way when I write in The Economist, I don't worry about sales of The Economist. the worst thing you can do as a writer is to worry about whether people will spy or not buy or read or not read. No, you just have to say what you're going to say. And so, to be honest, if the Chinese are offended, well, then let all 1.3 billion of them not read the book. So that's great. Bye.
Right.
See you later.
Right.
I'll see you on the next book.
I see a little bit of your Uncle Lulu in it, which I'll get to in a few later question.
But I'm not being arrogant. You understand that? We're kidding.
Understand.
Because that's actually not what happens. China is not my target market, to be honest. But people don't react that way. The Chinese, I spent some time in China. I was in Hong Kong with the journalist, and I was often in the mainland. They're fascinated by it. Yeah, they don't talk about it a lot, especially not with a Lao Wai, a Guilo like me.
Right.
They're fascinated by it. They all remember it. Look, I think they might like this story. They see it. And so I'm not worried at all that it'll be received in a bad way. I don't think there's no cover. There's an official cover. I mean, Mao's painting is still by the forbidden, Tiananmen,
Right.
On Tiananmen Square. But when you get to know Chinese people, they all know. The older ones sort of
still remembers. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.